So I've got a real life queen with me today, guys, and her name is Elena Cardone. Elena actually started her career in Hollywood as an actress and model and is now an established author, businesswoman, public speaker, and empire builder and visionary. She also hosts her own show, Women in Power, and co-hosts the G&E show with her husband, the infamous Grant Cardone, who is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and real estate investor. Together, they have created a real estate portfolio of almost $1 billion. In this episode, Elena is going to break it down with you and share with you what it really takes to be a queen and build a successful empire. We'll also be discussing her relationship with Grant and what it takes to be in a power couple like that. So get ready to meet the beautiful, magnetic, and powerful Elena Cardone. Elena, I am so excited to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm excited about our topic too, because this is one I have not gone over in my podcast yet. And that is really what it takes to be a queen and building an empire. And I know that's your jam. I know you just wrote a book about building an empire. So we're going to dive into all that juicy goodness.
Can't wait.
Before we do,
okay,
I'd love for you to share your journey, because I know you haven't always been this woman that we see today. And if you feel comfortable, I would love for you to share maybe a challenging moment that was a defining moment for you, maybe a low point or something that kind of shows us your journey and your beginnings.
Okay. Well, yeah, I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I left there at 17. I kind of just had taken sort of a path of New Orleans. If you know New Orleans, you know New Orleans. There was a lot of drinking involved, recreational drugs, and the lowest point in my life was an incident that happened when I was 14. My best friend perished in a fire across the street. Unfortunately, I was there and witnessed the whole thing. So it was really hard for me to deal with at that age. And I think that's why I went down that road to just kind of self-medicate and deal with that trauma in the best way and the only way that I could know how to do for myself. So at 17, I left New Orleans to better myself. I went to Los Angeles in pursuit of an acting and a modeling career. I didn't really know what else to do at that time. And acting had always been a passion of mine. So, and my parents, they were a great family, but my mother was she was the one who worked in the family, and my father didn't. And it put a big strain on the family, but in that it taught me, like, my father always wanted me to be independent because he had aspirations to be in the entertainment business as well. So he wanted me to pursue my career and not let anyone stop me, which in his world, he perceived that maybe my mother set him back by having to stop and do a family. And then my mom pushed on me never to rely on anyone and to pursue everything because of how she felt in the relationship, which was that you can only depend on yourself, because she felt like she didn't have a partner that was contributing financially. So it was really ingrained in me to be self-reliant and independent and never depend on a man from both sides. So in Los Angeles, I surrounded myself with like-minded people. They all felt the same way. At least that's what my perception was at the time. So I traveled the world. I went to places as an actress and a model, and then, had just the typical career highs and lows. I never popped or made it, but I always was able to sustain my living and enough to buy a house and a bunch of cars and, sustain a living. And then I met Grant, and he was a very unique individual, not like any I had ever met before. But still, even though I was married to him for the first 5 years, I was still operating with this data that I couldn't depend on a man. I always had to have plan B. And I was always just doing me, even though it was us. I was still like thinking about me. And then the economy collapsed in 2008. I was pregnant with my first child. The acting thing was, was at a lull. There's not many roles for an actress, 8 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant in Hollywood at that time. So that's when I really gave what I was doing a real hard look. Grant was a successful businessman at the time. His business, as he knew it, was pretty much over. We were in dire straits. I looked at, well, what could I bring to the table to help him? Because I felt like he had a better chance of financial success in creating this empire than I did. I always kind of felt like my luck kind of depended on other people to say whether I could or couldn't do something. And so that gave me an opportunity to say, this could be a defining moment in my life where I can actually create the life that I want under my terms without needing to seek approval or be a certain way for someone else to approve me and legitimize me. So I made the really hard decision in 2008 to trade in my acting career in order to trade up to really be an ally and an asset to my husband and to the company, and to get us at ground zero and develop what we've turned into today, which is the empire that we built. But at the time, I didn't know all of this was going to come to fruition. I just dove in and took a risk, and the reward paid off. So that's my story. That's my backstory. Now I'm completely the opposite. I feel like I found my power and true strength as a woman actually by depending on a man, which I know that sounds really odd, but it's true. Whether it's from a lover or platonic relationships, no one's doing it alone. No one's doing it independently. It's a myth. It's a myth that's out there that really needs to be dispelled if you really want to achieve power and build an empire. You're gonna have to depend on others. So that's where I've gotten in my life. We're a great team. We're a great partnership. You know, I certainly never claimed to be perfect, but we figured a lot of things out. And that's why I wrote this book, Build an Empire. And I have the online course coming out because I want to help other people fast track what I've learned and what we've learned into shortening your journey, so that if I can help you get there faster than it took me, that's my mission. So thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
And I want to, there's a couple of things you said I want to go back on. So first off, I know a story that I've heard you tell before, which was the 2008 story, which was when you guys were, I think, sitting on the couch or something like that. Mm-hmm. And Grant had said something to you along the lines of, "We're going to die." And I would love for you to share that with our listeners, because I found that story to be just amazing and inspiring. And I would love for our listeners to hear it too.
So in 2008, we were sitting on the sofa, watching the news, and Lehman collapsed, and my husband's face went white. And the more we watched the news, the more panic set in on him. And I had never seen this man who I thought was strong, was powerful, who was my rock, who was so much to me, a mentor, a friend, everything. I'd never seen someone go so weak. And it concerned me. So I said, "What does this mean?" And he looked at me and he said, "It means we're going to die." And in that moment, it rattled me to my core. And I said to him, "I don't die." And I was pregnant with our child. So I was very offended by this. Like, how dare you say that we're going to die? Like, I don't die. Like, do I look like death to you? And I just really, I said, "You promised me when I got with you that my life would be better. You did not say anything about death. Like, there was no mention of dying. Like, I'm a winner. I'm a winner. I always land on my feet. No matter how many times you punch me, you can't kill me. I mean, you might kill my physical body, but you can't kill my soul." And so I take those things very seriously. I said to him, "You go," he had an office down at the end of the hallway. At the time, we didn't have a big building or anything. We were living in LA, so he worked out of his home. I said, "You go down to your office and you don't come out until you figure it out." And so he left. He went to the office. I was like, oh my God, now what? You know, here I am all like, you know, boss woman. I had no idea what was coming next. Well, he was in his room for 1 hour, 2 hours. As time went on, I was like, oh my gosh, what's he doing in there? Should I offer him some water? I mean, we kind of ended on this. I mean, I don't know if it was a fight or what it was. Should I offer some food? And I'm thinking, no, I have to be tough. I have to be tough. But then 3 hours later, he came out and he had this manuscript. And he put it in my hands and he said, I wrote my first book. He had wanted to write a book for years and he had never done it. But in 3 hours, he wrote a book from start to finish, hand to God. I don't know how any human can do this, but he did.
Me neither.
And he put it in my hands and he said, it's a book. It's not going to make us rich, but I know what to do. I know how to get out of this and I will never make you worry again. And he kept his word.
Wow. Such a powerful story. I love that so much because what I love is that in that moment, you were strength for him.
Yeah.
And it may have triggered his ego a little bit when you said what you said, but he knows why you said it. And you were coming from a place of power and strength. And that was exactly what he needed to create what he created. So I just love the way that you guys have such a power balance. And that's actually something I really wanted to ask you about is you're an alpha woman, right? You're an alpha woman. Okay. Well, it's clear that Grant is also an alpha man. Okay. So we have an alpha male and alpha woman.
Yep.
Now, and this is a personal question I actually have too. And I'm sure our audience is wondering, like, how do you go from being up, you know, what's the difference between a power couple, like people who work together and create from a place of power when both are alphas versus a power struggle? Because what I've seen before is alphas will come together and they'll be button heads because there's that ego power struggle. How do you guys dance through that? How do you guys work through that?
Well, we still have our power struggles. I'm not going to lie because, you know, we both want our way and we're very opinionated about the way that we want things run. So we still battle over that, but we keep it in check when you know your roles. Until we had this really figured out, we were always power struggling. But then we finally came to the point where we figured out and we gave a good, honest look at who does what and who's got strengths and who's got the weaknesses in what area. And we dellied it up. I don't know if that's the word. We divided it up, I suppose, into you run this department, you run this department. Grant is clearly a better businessman than I ever will. So Grant runs the business. So every decision that he makes on the business, whether he involves me, gets my opinion, whether I really want something, don't want something, at the end of the day, he makes the decisions. He is superior to me in that aspect, even though we're equal in marriage. I'm not going to lie to myself. The man is superior to me in business. So when he makes a final decision, even if I don't like it, I back his decision. That's just what we do. And, you know, I go all in and I trust him and he's never let us wrong. You know, now on the family side, it just so happens I really run that department and the kids and everything with the kids is my department. I decide if they're going to get homeschooled, who's the teachers, what they're going to do, what courses, whether they can have sugar, when they can do this, when the bedtime is. I run everything in that department. And Grant is not allowed to bypass me in that department just because he's the boss here and runs 150 employees just in this one location. So we respect each other's roles. When there's a problem at home, it falls on me. Well, what am I doing? Where do I need to pick up the ball? How do I need to juggle it so it's right? If there's a problem in the business, then it's easy to say, you're the general in that department, fix it, make it go right. So we each have our, and not just that, I just picked those departments because those are generally the biggest ones for people. But it's like anything, who does the social, who does, you know, the social planning, the outings, the PR, whatever there's a lot of different roles and hats that I wear, and there's several that he does as well. But it's very important, especially if you're talking alphas, that each alpha is the general of that department and the other one respect and not bypass the general. If there's two generals in an area, you're having war.
Yeah. Well, I love that. That's so important. So you're setting boundaries, you're creating roles, and that I totally see that. I love that. So you guys actually sat down, you created these, you agreed on them together, as a couple,
He
and you
does
guys
the
were
finances. He runs all the finances. He pays all the bills. He does everything. I mean, money, like the guy, like there's no one that knows numbers better than him. Like, why would I do that? You know, that's not my thing. I'm an artist. I create things. I make things beautiful. I visualize things. I have ideas. I architect, but I'm not the implementer. I'm not the enforcer. I'm not the hammer. He is. So I might come to him with a vision and say, what about this? Can we go in this department? Can we do this? And then it's up to him to take and figure it out. So that's why we work really well together, because we figured out who does best at what and figured out how to work with it to boost us both up.
I love that. I love that. There's a lot of respect there. And one thing I want to say too, and for all of our female listeners, self-respect. That's something that I really feel that you've created a massive amount of respect for yourself, Elena. And it's inspiring for women everywhere to see how much you respect yourself, your boundaries. And that is, to me, a queen. A queen respects herself. And I believe that is why Grant respects you so much, and all these people respect you so much, because it starts with you and respecting yourself. Now, when it comes to creating that self-respect, was that something that you've kind of always had inherently? Have you always? No. Can you share a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, in my earlier years when you're consuming drugs and alcohol, I don't care what lies you tell yourself. You think you can handle it. You think, it's cool. It's not affecting you. There's a part of you that knows the truth about that, and you're diminishing your power. You're lying to yourself. So in those years, you don't really have respect when, you're doing things. When you're doing drugs, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things that you regret, period. And with too much alcohol too. So, and the more you accumulate times when you let yourself down, the less self-respect you're going to have for yourself. So, I mean, I haven't touched a drug since 2000. So I've had 19 years now with no drugs and very little alcohol. So the main thing for building self-respect is you do the little things. You start with the little things. You do what you say you're going to do, and you do it. So if it's too overwhelming to say you're going to be, on the Forbes billionaire list, don't set that goal right now. I'm going to make my bed every day. I'm going to drink a gallon of water. I'm going to work out 1 time a week. I'm going to not have dessert 3 times this week. I mean, little things. It starts with that. When you can start proving to yourself, when you say you're going to do something and then you do it, that's how you build confidence and self-respect. And then you can start trusting yourself. And then the more of those accumulations you have where you don't let yourself down, the more you can be trusted. It's weird how the physical universe works. But then when you say, I'm going to be on the cover of Forbes magazine, the universe goes, I think the biatch is right. I'm going to step out of her way. Because you know why? Because it knows you're going to get what you want no matter what. And you have the persistence to do that, and the determination and the tenacity. And the more you have of that, I'm telling you, the more the universe just steps aside and goes and picks on the other people, the people with the low self-respect and all of that. It picks on those people. You notice how those people have problems and bad things happen to those people, whether their car gets booted or they get parking tickets, or it just seems like always something is happening.
Yep.
That's not for no reason. It's happening because that's being created in their life by them.
So true. Thank you so much for sharing that.
It's not that my life isn't perfect and I don't get a parking ticket. That's not the point. The point is it just becomes easier in life to actually have the things that you want when you do what you say, and you can be a trusted source to yourself and to others.
That's so true. Being a woman of your word.
Being a woman of your word, and then you build on it. So you start small and then you build, and then you challenge yourself. Hey, can I do this? Can I do that? I mean, I just started a year and a half ago in the martial arts world. It still feels so incredibly ridiculously stupid to me. It's unbelievable. Yet I still continue to show up and I still continue to try. you know, but I have this determination to just see how far can I expand myself physically, mentally, and try something new. It just, for me, it gets my energy able to then go into my life with Grant or a business deal and see things in a different way. It gives me other ways of coping or reacting to a situation rather than reacting to a situation. It gives me the possibility, like analyzing and figuring out what I want to do based on what I want, rather than just reacting like, oh, this situation calls for me to be upset, so I'm going to be upset and go, rah, 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 rah. Sometimes if a situation comes up that calls for you to be upset about something or mad, maybe you want to sit back and think about it and say, what is really the true plan here or plot to better expand my empire? And let me react. Maybe I react with a smile. Maybe I react with, well, hey, how can I help you? Maybe I react with, okay, and cut them off. I mean, I don't know, but I want choices. I don't want to just react to things.
Yeah, that's really important. Responding versus reacting. That's something I've actually heard you say in another interview about how that's, you know, when Grant comes at you with things, you have this way where you're able to ground yourself. Like I think you said something like bite my tongue, because you know that that's going to create a better response versus you reacting and then it just becoming that power struggle, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that all the time, but you know, I'm constantly like, okay, what can I learn from that? And how can I be better next time? And that's why something like martial arts or whatever it is that you want to do can help you, because it's just discipline. There's a discipline, and it just gives you a different way to look at things and situations. So I'm always about, and who doesn't, you know, if you going back to the self-respect thing, like if you learn a new trait, a new craft, you feel better, you are healthier. I mean, how can you not respect yourself after you pull off these major victories with your own self?
Yeah. And you're challenging your own limits. And I heard you say that. It's like, this is crazy. I'm doing this martial arts thing that I never thought I would maybe do, but you're doing it. You're challenging yourself. I had a similar thing for me when I was in fitness. Like I had this really limiting belief back in the day. This is like years and years ago, where I just thought, you know what, this is the cards I'm dealt. Like I'm never going to have the body I want, like which is totally sabotaging beliefs, right? One day I decided, you know what, I'm going to challenge that. And I literally did 2-a-days. I was at the gym twice a day. I was going at it, pushing. And what I created was something I would have never thought was possible for me. And it felt so good. It wasn't even like, I didn't even care about the outcome as much as I cared about how I felt afterwards. I felt inspired, invigorated, powerful. So I totally get what you mean. It's showing us what's possible for ourselves. It's like, okay, if I do this, then what else is possible?
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I love that so much. Okay, so I want to go over what I would love to break down is the qualities, what it takes to be a queen. We talked about that, and you talked about self-respect. I think we can both agree that's a huge one, right? Yeah. What are some other qualities that you believe are crucial to have as a queen to her king, and as a queen in the empire? What are those traits? What would you say are the most important things that you must develop?
Observation. I think it's crucial for the queen to be able to observe and see what is around her, like really have the ability to confront. It's not easy. People want to, I mean, I don't want to generalize and say especially women, but certainly as a generality, women tend to be more naive and tend to maybe see what they want to see, which might be more like rainbows and unicorns. That is a generalization. So, you know, that might not be true for a lot of people, but for me, it was certainly the case. And I still deal with that to this day, where I know one of my weaknesses is my naivete. And so I constantly have to run what I'm seeing through that filter. Like, am I just being naive here? And I have to purposely run through every negative aspect to be able to determine whether or not I have something legitimately like real, or what's the ulterior motive. And sometimes I find out the ulterior motive and don't care, but you have to be able to observe. And so that means you have to start observing, just looking and seeing. Are people gossiping? Are they How do they present themselves? How do they carry their wardrobes? How do they carry themselves? What do they say about other people when they're not around? I don't know. There's just, you have to be willing to see that there are people out there that even though they pretend to have your best interest in mind, are actually seeking to destroy you, and that there are evil people out there. That's not something I wanted to confront, but it is the truth. And the more you're able to see really what's in front of you and not just what people say to you, then you can avoid collisions, catastrophes that can set back an empire big time by avoiding doing business with those people, by avoiding being friends with those people. And the same is true, knowing how to observe people when you do have the right person in front of you, knowing when to hook up with someone that is going to be beneficial and really help and grow. But that comes from observing. It comes from having a trust in yourself, that knowing what you know, whether you have the evidence or not, because oftentimes I will have perceptions about a person, but I have nothing, I don't know the person. Well, how can I even say that, you know? So it makes my case difficult if I'm like trying to steer Grant away from it. Sometimes I just have to make the thing go away and Grant doesn't even know. So there's a lot of finesse involved with being a queen. You have to not be jealous. Like, you know, like you can't be jealous. You have to have grace, dignity, finesse, observation skills, know how to navigate where the ship's going to go, do it stealth when you need to be stealth, and then build up your assets, your allies, the people who are going to fight for you, the people who are going to have your back. You need those people. So there's a lot to being a queen. And maybe one of the most challenging things is making it look so effortlessly and easy and just like you're just like the lucky one. But behind all of that was a lot of work.
Yeah. And something else I've heard you say before too is being a ride or die.
Yeah.
And you talk about that. And I mean, that's huge, because for me, what that means for me, and I'd love to hear what that means for you. For me, what that means is like, I see a marriage as two imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other.
Yep.
Period. Like no matter what. So that's kind of, I think of it as like an unconditional commitment to your partner, no matter what. And for you, I would love to know, what does that mean? And I know you're so committed to Grant, your children. Like when you talk about being a ride or die, what does that mean to you?
What you just said, you know, I love what you said, two imperfect people that are committed to each other. And, you know, it's not easy. It's not always easy. And I hate even saying that. I wish I could be like, I hate hearing that expression. It's not easy. But it's not, you know, but you know, everyone knows nothing really is. If you want a gold medal, ask those Olympic athletes what they went through. Ask anyone who has a Super Bowl ring or any kind of trophy, a boxer, any kind of champion, what they went through and how many hours of training. You know, it's not always do what you love. I mean, yeah, you want to do what you love, but in that, there's going to be times where you have to do things that you don't love and sacrifices to be made, you know? And that's pretty much what a marriage is. If you want a gold star marriage, you're going to have to put in work. It doesn't just exist on its own. It's not a fairy tale where you kiss and live happily ever after. It's a continuous create to make something extraordinary. And it's not always pretty. But in that, you have victories together, you develop trust, honor, respect, courage. And when you accumulate enough victories in your life, like that is love. So when you attain that, you get to a point where you're just ride or die, like through thick and thin. I understand we're going to go up and we're going to go down, and we're going to go up and we're going to go down. But the whole time we're going like this, you know, or you should be anyway. So, you know, ride or die is not just about an easy way out and giving up because it's easy. It's no, you stick with it and you figure it out because that's the one that is best for you. And Grant
Mm-hmm.
is best for me. There's no one who can handle me better. No one who can elevate me. There's no one who challenges my mind. There's probably no one I will hate more, but there's no one I will love more either, and vice versa. So, I'm committed to him. I know that the grass is not, I know that if I left him and went someplace else, I'm going to have to start all over again with somebody else and go through the same thing. So rather than doing all that work, why don't I just figure it out with him, do the work with him to maintain myself, elevate myself, and give that to him, and vice versa, rather than like always ending and restarting and ending and restarting and ending and restarting.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And I love that we just debunked that myth that marriage is easy, commitment is easy. No, it's not. It takes work. And I love that you said that, because I've had people say that to me. Oh, it should be easy. It should be easy.
No, that's the thing that I think causes the most damage to people is when they have an idea of what something should be, because you're not in a fairy tale and nobody has the script that you've written in your mind. So they are not going to live out all the words in your movie that you've written, but only you has the script. That's not life. Everyone has their own. But the faster you can get rid of your expectations or what you think in your mind and really go back to dealing what is in front of you and figuring out how to work with that and create a solution for that and make that workable and make that better and make that great, that's where your gold is. If you're trying to get somebody to fit into this idea that you have in your mind, you're going to torture yourself like insanity, because you're always going to be discouraged.
I love that. So true. So true. Letting go of expectation. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Letting go of expectation in order to create your visualization. Just make it happen. Figure out how to make it happen. Come up with your own solutions. Instead of just expecting something to happen, make it happen. You create it. That's the secret. You create it. It doesn't just happen. It's not just like an illusion in your mind. Like if you want that, you have to create that.
So powerful. Like even people chasing happiness, it's like we create happiness, we can create that. It's like, how can we think outside of our box? How can we get outside of our box and figure out what can I create in this moment that is going to have me be happy? Right. It's taking responsibility. It's living from a space of responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I really want to talk about your book.
Okay.
And it all lines up though. Everything we've been talking about lines up perfectly with your book. So your book, Build an Empire. What was the why behind that? Like what inspired you to write your book?
Well, when Grant had me speak at the very first 10X Growth Con, I thought, well, it's an entrepreneurial event. What am I going to say? I mean, yes, I help them in business. I come up with ideas, but I'm not a businesswoman, like per se, in the traditional sense, So I really thought about it, and I thought, well, I'll just talk about what I do know, which is everything that I run behind our operation. And in doing that, I realized people don't think like us. Like, I had no idea that people don't think like we do. And the more people came to me and wanted to know more information and have me speak more, and there was just a demand, that's what inspired the book. Grant, again, wanted me to write the book. I protested writing the book for my own personal reasons. But ultimately, it's what I said in the beginning of your show, which is that I feel I've gotten to a point in my life where I've uncovered some myths. I figured out a few datums that if you apply them can really help in relationships. And if you're a single person just trying to build your empire, I've learned some things over the last 16 years that have really helped me. And that's what I want. I want to fast track other people's success. I don't really see many women beside really powerful men saying what it is they do. So I wanted to just expose that and make that transparent to be able to help anyone that is trying to figure it out for themselves, either whether they're with an entrepreneurial man or woman, or just trying to figure out the whole dynamic of relationships, period.
Yeah. And I love that, because a lot of times women will not, like, what you're doing is you're bringing light to queenship and what you do behind the scenes and the integral part that you are in the empire. And that is inspiring for a lot of women, because a lot of women don't know quite how to step up, quite how to own, you know, their worth, their value. And you've done that, and you've created that space for many women, which is beautiful. And yeah. And I also would love, just because I know so many people aspire to be an author. So many people admire authors for putting in the work it takes to create books. I remember when we were in Thailand and you were sharing the story about writing your book. And I just think the reason why I love this story so much, Elena, is because you guys you guys have such a great, like, Grant pushed you to write the book. You pushed Grant in that moment, the 2008 story that you shared earlier. Like, you guys have these moments where, like, you play team, you guys are team. And when one of you starts to, the other one's like, and raises the other person up, which I think is just beautiful. That's the way that I believe a power couple gets to work. Like, that's how it works. So I know in that moment you were sharing how you were, like, feeling anxious and disempowered about writing your book, and you're frustrated. And what, can you share that story with the listeners?
I was writing the book, and you know, I've never been a fan of school. And so sitting down, sitting still, anyone that knows me knows I'm very hyper. I don't sit still very often. So the discipline to sit still and write and was challenging for me. So I had stopped for about 2 months. I was like, oh, I can't handle it. And then one day, Grant and I were talking, and we got into an argument about the book. And he called me. He said, you know, you're just lazy and a coward. And I couldn't believe that he called me lazy and a coward. I was so angry. But it was the exact thing that I needed, because I literally stopped everything I was doing and spent the last 2 months of what it took for me to finish writing and rewriting and editing the book. But I nonstop wrote on the book. And there were days, I'm not even kidding, days, like maybe 3 or 4 days when I never even left the condo. And I was just writing. And when I finished the project, I had my moment where I handed Grant my book, and I was like, but mine wasn't so nice. Mine was like, here, you know, take that. And I was like, it's my book, you know, and I said, take that from a lazy and a coward, you know. I had to give him a dig. And he looked at me and he was like, congratulations. And then he said, you know, I never for 1 second ever thought you were lazy or a coward. And I was like, oh, hell. Now he's going to make me cry in my tough girl moment, you know. But yes, in that moment, that does define our relationship, because it's not pretty. It didn't feel good, but I got a product, something that I'm really proud of. I feel it can help a lot of people. It made him proud, and we get to share that victory together. You know, and that's really what love is. Love to me is I would rather that moment than Grant stopping his computer and stopping his phone and sitting with me on a couch, holding my hand while we watched a movie uninterrupted for 2 hours. That might have been my old idea of what love was, going back to those myths and ideas that you have. But this is more real to me. I'm interested in real. I'm interested in doing big things and making a difference for the better on this planet. I want to play big games. And he helps me to that level do big accomplishments and achievements.
I just, and you know what, you guys want the same thing. Like, you guys both want, and that's important. So for those of you listening, notice, like, Grant Cardone, Elena Cardone, they both have big missions, big visions. They want to impact the world. Now, do you think that Elena could be with someone who doesn't have a vision that big? Do you think she could be with someone who didn't want to impact the world and was being selfish and hoarding their gifts? No.
Yeah. No, I had a boyfriend before Grant, and I'll never forget it. I said, you know, I was young. I was in my 20s, early 20s. We were together. And I was like, I just want to, what did I say? I just want to, I want to change the world. That's what I said. I said, I want to change the world. And he was like, you see, that's your problem. Like you have this, like, how do you think you're going to change the world? Like, he was such a realistic kind of a guy. And I was like, well, not like really, like I don't really think I'm going to change the world, but I want to do something big. I want, had all this life and all this enthusiasm. And he was always like, that's your problem. You're just always so, over the top and too much. And he was always trying to calm me down. Like, I have energy. I have a lot of energy. I'm always in motion. And Grant just allows me to be that way and accepts that as part of my genius and my creativity. And he knows that that energy gets honed into ideas that help us. So but that person was trying to stop me. That person was trying to hold me down, make me think something's wrong. If I was a normal person, I might believe them and think, oh my God, I need to be on those ADHD drugs, or, I need to calm down. I need to fit in. What's wrong with me? I have too much energy. Normal people can only focus on one thing at one time, and that's fine. Okay. If I have ADHD, it means I can focus on many things at many different times, and that I call genius. So don't let people who are normal try to convince you that you are not great because you have something they don't have. That's your genius, and that's what I want you to share with the world.
Ooh, I love it so much. I love it. I love it. That what a great way. Okay, because we're just nearing the end, and I'm like, I was going to have you close it out with a powerful, damn, that was powerful. So thank you. That's beautiful. So, okay. This has been such an awesome conversation so far. Thank you, Elena, for sharing your beautiful presence, your energy with us.
You're so welcome. And it was so fun having you over in Thailand. Wasn't that place amazing?
So beautiful. That was your guys' first time in Thailand, right?
Yep, it was my first time in Thailand, and I miss it. I just posted a post on my Instagram 2 days ago saying, I miss Thailand.
You guys get to go back.
Yeah, we'll go back. I loved it there. But anyway, thanks for having me on the show. Really, it was great. Thank you.
And yes, and for those listening, where can they go to get your book? Where can they go to connect with you? All the things.
Well, on Instagram and all socials, I'm Elena Cardone, ELENA CARDONE, like Car and Done. And my book is free. You just pay the shipping. It's elenacardone.com/empire. And I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Okay, awesome. And then, they can always subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's also YouTube/Elena Cardone. So, I would love anyone who likes me or liked anything that we said. Yes, follow, share, be my friend. I love social media, and I'm pretty good at responding to people.
No, awesome. Well, Elena, thank you so much for coming on. For those of you listening, I hope you took a ton of notes, because Elena just dropped some major value bombs during this episode. And connect with her, get her book. And honestly, Elena, you're such an inspiration for me, for so many women out there. And you've really shown us what it is to be a queen, to be a woman that stands in her power, her truth, and owns her voice and her value, which is what all of us women want. And I just thank you so much for being here today. And I will look forward to talking with you very soon, and maybe going to Thailand. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.